So here now with some tips for the AI era is futurist and economist Rebecca Ryan. Rebecca, thanks for joining us. You know, we are now in the midst of this AI revolution. So just how did we get here?
Well, it's been coming for a while. You know, we've had assistive technologies for a while. Anybody who's been using Gmail has noticed that it will fill in the word that it anticipates that you want. So it's not that we got here overnight, but boy, the bellwether was November of 2023 when ChatGPT hit the scene, and it seemed like magic.
So let's talk about just some of the jobs being directly impacted by AI, you know, that we wouldn't typically think of. I think a lot of us are a little nervous, right, about this technology and what it will do to the job market.
Yeah, so I think you have to think across the range of jobs. Like you said, there are some jobs that are, it's so surprising. I live in Madison, Wisconsin, and NOAA and the Department of Natural Resources teamed together in the winter to send out drone technology and satellite technology to see which farmers may have been overshedding manure out into these white, stark winter fields. So they used it to alert farmers, hey, you know, you're kind of breaking the law here. And that was a technology I don't think many farmers saw coming. And then on the other end of the spectrum, you think of the really high value jobs like attorneys and doctors. And we know that ChatGPT-2 scored like in the 90th percentile on the LSAT, the law school exam. So that makes people at the very high end of the job spectrum kind of take notice as well.
Yeah, well, as a futurist, let's talk about the role that AI is projected to play, not just now, but really over the next decade. Where do you see it going?
Yeah, so I think any of us who work with a lot of data and information, we can see where ChatGPT, assistive technologies, and even like my graphic designer has started to use some of the, you know, the image generating AIs to, you know, take shortcuts or save some time. So I think any of us who work in the information sector, so that's about 30 to 40% of us. But then every one of us, even if you're working as a cashier in a grocery store, there's information that we're working with. So the number one thing I think is to sort of pay attention and notice. Like if you're working with information, that could be a part of your job that could be replaced, or you will be asked to use assistive technology. But then there are other parts of your job, the human parts of your job, like empathy, like critical problem solving, complex problem solving, working in a team that AI can't touch. Those are the things that make us human, and those are the things that are going to continue to be of very high value.
Yeah, well, we hope so, right? You know, for those, though, who aren't really thinking ahead, why should they care about this right now?
Well, most of us, as you know, you mentioned that report at the top of the segment that 40% of jobs will be affected by AI. And I think whenever there's a change, it's very natural for us to fear it, you know, because change can be very scary. But my recommendation is to just get curious. You know, it's free, for example, to sign up with OpenAI and get a chat account, to get a ChatGPT account, or to play with DALL-E, and just to play with it, familiarize yourself with it, because right now it's the worst it's ever going to be. So start to familiarize yourself with it. The second thing, as I mentioned earlier, is to, you know, work on your own critical problem solving skills, those complex problem solving skills that AI is never going to be able to replace. Remember, AI is not sentient, it's not human. Although it may talk with you in a language that makes you think like, oh, it understands me. It is just, it's figuring out what word comes after the next word. And then the final thing is, you know, when possible, raise your hand, you know, say, I want to be the person at work who thinks about how to use this. Let me run some tests. Let me run some pilots. We're doing this in my shop right now. Nearly everybody we're working with is doing this as well. We're just trying to test some things, because I think David Brooks said, you're not going to be replaced by AI, but you may be replaced by someone who understands how to use AI. So it's only a boogeyman if we make it a boogeyman.
Such an important point. Futurist and economist Rebecca Ryan, thank you so much for your insight. We appreciate it.
Thank you.